February 2025. Queensland police smash through 12 doors. They discover something alarming. The Comanchero Outlaw motorcycle gang is recruiting for a brand new street crew, the 50 Street Crew. A kilogram of cocaine, 2 firearms, a cannabis grow house, 15 people charged. This is the latest chapter in a gang's brutal evolution that started with a John Wayne movie and exploded into Australia's deadliest biker massacre. The Comanchero Motorcycle Club didn't start in Australia. It started in Scotland. In 1968, a Scottish immigrant named William George Ross arrived in Sydney after serving 7 years in the British Army Royal Engineers. He'd seen the 1961 John Wayne film, The Comancheros, and decided that would be the perfect name for his new motorcycle club. Ross wasn't just any biker, he was a military enthusiast who ran his club like an army unit. Members underwent weekly paramilitary drills. He created an elite force called the Strike Force. On the clubhouse wall hung a sign that read, "If it's white, sniff it. If it's female or it moves, sleep with it. If it narcs, kill it." Ross gave himself the title Supreme Commander. His authoritarian style made him unpopular. One former member told media, "If I wanted to march around in the backyard, I would have joined the army." But it was Ross's militaristic approach that would lead to Australia's most notorious biker battle. In 1983, Anthony Mark Spencer broke away from Ross's chapter and formed a second Comanchero chapter in Sydney. Spencer challenged Ross's authority, and the club split. When Spencer visited the United States, he met members of the Bandidos Motorcycle Club in Texas. The Bandidos wanted access to P2P, a chemical needed to manufacture amphetamines that was legal in Australia but not in America. The Texas Bandidos dominated the amphetamine market and needed this chemical badly. An alliance formed. In November 1983, the Bandidos patched over Spencer's Comanchero chapter to become the first Bandidos chapter in Australia. The two clubs were now bitter enemies. September 2nd, 1984. Father's Day in Australia. A British motorcycle club scheduled a swap meet at the Viking Tavern in Milperra, a southwestern Sydney suburb. Ross assembled his Comancheros and told them they were going to the Viking Tavern armed. He shouted, "Okay men, let's move it out." 19 armed Comancheros arrived at 1 p.m. and took up hidden positions in the parking lot. Ross planned a military-style pincer movement based on tactics he'd read about from the Anglo-Zulu War. But Ross got distracted by members of another rival club and went inside the tavern. Some Comancheros, thinking the Bandidos weren't coming, also went inside. At 1:20 p.m., 34 Bandidos members arrived. Weapons were handed out. A verbal argument erupted. Then gunfire exploded across the parking lot. The battle lasted 10 minutes. When it ended, 7 people lay dead. 4 Comancheros, 2 Bandidos, and 14-year-old Leanne Walters, an innocent girl attending the swap meet with her father's friend. 28 others were wounded. The court case that followed became one of the largest in Australian history. Over 1,000 potential jurors were presented before 12 acceptable ones were found. The trial lasted more than 2 years. Justice Adrian Roden named Ross as the primary instigator. He received a life sentence. 4 other Comancheros got life for murder. 16 Bandidos received 7-year sentences for manslaughter. The massacre changed Australia's gun laws forever. The New South Wales Firearms Act was amended to require a good reason for carrying firearms in public. Ross served just 5 years and 3 months before release. He spent his retirement on the Central Coast near Mangrove Mountain. But around 2002, everything changed. A new generation was taking over the Comancheros. Mahmoud Mick Howie arrived in Australia from Lebanon in 1985 as a refugee fleeing the Lebanese Civil War. He joined the Comancheros in 1999 at age 19. Tall and muscular, Howie stood out immediately. By 2002, Howie led a group of younger members, many from Middle Eastern and Islander backgrounds, to Ross's house. They beat the elderly founder severely, took his club colors, and stole his Harley Davidson. In 2003, Howie declared himself the new Comanchero national president and supreme commander. The gang was evolving rapidly. Recruiting Middle Eastern members in the late 1990s brought increased involvement in drug trafficking. The old guard had no respect for the new generation. The new generation had no respect for tradition. March 22, 2009, Sydney Airport, Terminal 3. Howie and Hells Angels? National President Derek Wainohu happened to board the same flight from Melbourne to Sydney. During the flight, tensions erupted. They exchanged threats. Both men texted their gang members to meet them at the airport with weapons. When the plane landed at 1:30 p.m., reinforcements waited with knives and knuckle dusters. As the rival bikers pushed and shoved while disembarking, someone yelled, "Come on, boys, let's go!" At Gate 5, the Comancheros confronted the Hells Angels. 12 Comancheros against 5 Hells Angels. Someone shouted, "He's got a nug!" Dash biker slang for gun, spelled backwards. The brawl erupted in front of horrified passengers. One witness, Naomi Constantine, told the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, "They started grabbing the metal poles that break up the check-in area and swinging them almost like swords at each other's heads. I saw one of the men lying on the ground, and another man came up with a pole and just started smashing it into his head." Anthony Zervas, the 29-year-old brother of Hells Angels Sergeant-at-Arms, Peter Zervas, was bludgeoned with a 17-kilogram metal bollard and stabbed multiple times. He wasn't even a Hells Angels member, just closely associated through his brother. Security footage showed Comancheros gleefully punching and kicking Zervas while smashing his head. The brawl lasted 30 seconds. Zervas was dead. His brother pleaded, "Hang on, Tone." Over 50 travelers, CCTV cameras, and airport staff witnessed the killing. Security staff were unarmed and couldn't intervene. Australian Federal Police arrived late. Haywee left the scene telling Peter Zervas, "You're dead. You're going to have bullet holes through you." 6 Comancheros were arrested and convicted of riot and affray. In November 2011, Haywee was found guilty of murder. Justice Robert Allen Hume stated that although Howie may not have personally delivered fatal blows, his presence would undoubtedly have had the effect of authorizing and approving the actions of the other man who bludgeoned Anthony Zervas to death. In May 2014, Howie's murder conviction was overturned on appeal and a retrial ordered. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter and received a minimum sentence of 3.5 years in prison. But Howie's story wasn't over. In February 2018, while sitting in his Mercedes SUV outside a gym in Rockdale, New South Wales, he was shot dead at age 37. The killing remains unsolved. The Comancheros entered a period of chaos between 2022 and 2023. Melbourne chapter president Mick Murray was arrested for first-degree murder in April 2022. National Sergeant-at-Arms Tarek Zahed was badly wounded in a murder attempt in May 2022. Mark Buttle was extradited from Turkey to Australia on drug smuggling charges in August 2022. Zahed was charged with murder in August 2022. Duax Ngakuru was arrested in Turkey in January 2023 on drug smuggling charges. In October 2023, Turkish police detained 37 full-patch Comanchero members in Istanbul. The gang wasn't just operating in Australia anymore. They'd expanded to Southeast Asia and New Zealand. Since 2015, more than 3,000 people have been deported from Australia to New Zealand under so-called 501 grounds of bad character. Many were Comanchero members. Pasilika Naufahu, a former Comanchero Sergeant-at-Arms in Australia, was deported to New Zealand as a 501 in 2016. He became president of the Comanchero Motorcycle Club in New Zealand. In 2019, police raids netted more than $3.7 million in assets from the New Zealand chapter. In September 2024, New Zealand police charged 41 Comanchero members and affiliates with 137 charges following a 3-year investigation. Police seized 206 kilograms of methamphetamine, 1.76 kilograms of cocaine, 2.6 kilograms of cannabis, $1.275 million in cash, and $9.2 million in assets. They restrained 5 properties and 14 vehicles. Nearly every Comanchero member in New Zealand faced criminal charges. The Christchurch chapter was completely dismantled. But the Comancheros weren't finished. They were adapting, evolving. And in Queensland, Australia, they were creating something new. September 2024. Queensland Police launched Operation Whiskey Rebound. Intelligence revealed that current and former Comanchero members were actively recruiting for a newly formed street gang. They called it the 50 Street Crew. Acting Detective Superintendent Craig Bowman explained, "We gained intelligence that both current and former Comanchero members had been actively recruiting members for a newly formed street gang known as 50 Street Crew. This operation interfered with these efforts early and have effectively disrupted the gang's activities regarding drug trafficking across the southeast." On February 6th and 7th, 2025, detectives executed 12 simultaneous search warrants across Brisbane, Caboolture, Rockhampton, and Maryborough. 40 police officers coordinated the raids. The results were staggering. Police located 2 revolvers, large quantities of ammunition, a grow house with 19 cannabis plants, quantities of cocaine, cannabis, and methamphetamine, and approximately $20,000 in cash. At a suspected safe house in Dara, officers found 1 kilogram of cocaine, 85 grams of methamphetamine, a cannabis grow house, 1 revolver, and 2 kilograms of cannabis. 15 people were charged with 54 offenses. 3 men specifically faced charges of recruiting persons to become participants in a criminal organization. The Comancheros were diversifying, moving beyond traditional motorcycle club structures, creating street-level crews that could operate with more flexibility and less visibility. In November 2024, just months before the 50 Street Crew bust, National Task Force Morpheus conducted a coordinated operation targeting Comancheros across Australia. 33 people were arrested. Police uncovered multiple weapons, significant quantities of cash, jewelry, methamphetamine, and cocaine. They also seized illicit tobacco and vapes worth more than $1.5 million. The pattern is clear. The Comancheros have become one of Australia's most sophisticated criminal organizations. From their origins as a single motorcycle club founded by a Scottish soldier to a transnational crime network operating across Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, and Turkey. They've survived internal wars, police operations, leadership arrests, and deportations. When traditional structures are dismantled, they create new ones. When motorcycle clubs face too much scrutiny, they form street crews. The 50 Street Crew represents the Comanchero's latest evolution, a hybrid model combining outlaw motorcycle gang experience with street gang recruitment tactics. Younger members, lower profiles, distributed networks. Australian authorities know the threat is escalating. Detective Superintendent Jason Kelly, chair of National Task Force Morpheus, stated, "OMCGs are highly resilient and continue to recruit, using the misguided principles of brotherhood and lucrative lifestyle. We will continue to use different policing approaches to stamp out membership and disrupt their activities." The Comancheros have come far from that Viking tavern parking lot in 1984. They've evolved from paramilitary bikers following a Scottish commander's orders to a sophisticated criminal enterprise with international reach. They traffic drugs worth millions. They launder money. They recruit aggressively. They operate safe houses. They train members in military-style tactics. And when one operation gets shut down, they simply create another. The 50 Street Crew may be disrupted, but the Comancheros remain, adapting, evolving, always one step ahead. The question isn't whether they'll create another recruitment network. The question is when and where. From a John Wayne movie to Father's Day Massacre, from airport brawl to international drug empire, from outlaw motorcycle club to sophisticated crime syndicate, the Comancheros continue writing their violent legacy across the Pacific, and Operation Whiskey Rebound just revealed their newest chapter.